Now, it's time for the Anchormen podcast with Matt Gates and Dan Ball.
Welcome to the Anchorman podcast with Matt Gates and Dan Ball. I am Dan Ball. We got a very special guest coming up on this. What is this? The fourth, I think, or fifth episode of the Anchorman podcast. Quick programming note for tonight's podcast, though. Mr. Matt Gates is in the swamp all week long, doing some great investigating for our network, OAN, the One American News Network. So Matt couldn't join us tonight, so we brought back somebody that you saw on last Friday's episode, our newest anchorman, if you will, to the OAN primetime lineup, Riley Lewis, the Real Story host. How you doing, Riley?
Very good. How are you, Dan?
Well, I appreciate you sitting in. I'm doing great. And there was a couple reasons I asked you to fill in for Matt. One, you're a team member here at OAN with Matt and I. You're before my show. Matt's right after my show. But we learned something about Mr. Riley Lewis on last week's episode, and that is, besides wanting to become the next Rush Limbaugh, which you're working on now, you got your dream come true at 26 years old. You became a primetime host of your own political conservative talk show. You're also a huge music buff.
Oh, yes, sir. A lifelong passion of mine. If I wasn't doing this, I'd be doing something with music.
Did you tell Matt and I last week that you were in your first band in like middle school or freshman in high school or something that?
Yeah, high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So music has been your life next to television.
Yes.
They kind of blend.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a good thing to put together. So when Matt informed me he couldn't get out of the swamp in time for this podcast this Friday, I was like, Riley, I think you might be excited about our special guest tonight. And I figured that because Matt wasn't here and he's the firebrand, that we needed somebody that was a bit, maybe even more fiery than Matt Gates or myself. And since our theme song is Stranglehold by a guy that I affectionately call Uncle Ted, you know him, you love him, Ted Nugent, I thought, well, let's give Uncle Ted a call. See if he wants to come on and chit-chat on the show for like an hour. And also we could thank him for graciously allowing us to use that amazing song, which I heard, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure he will when we bring him on here in a sec. Did that song, is it celebrating its 50th anniversary this year?
Yes. Still timeless, still amazing, still rocking people all over the world, but it's hard to believe it's been 50 years.
So wait a minute. That means I'm going to be 51 this year. Because I think I was like 1 or something or 2 when that song came out. And my brothers and my dad, we were rocking to Strangled. That's why when I knew we were going to get it as our theme song for this show, I was so pumped. And so let's just not waste any more time with the show.
Yes.
Should we just get to it?
Let's do it.
So iconic rocker, amazing hunter, patriot, also known as the Motor City Madmen.
That's right. The Nuge.
The Nuge, Uncle Ted, Ted Nugent, joining the Anchorman podcast. There he is. Uncle Ted, welcome, brother.
I feel welcome. Riley, you deserve me, because if Dan Ball has determined that you're a truth, logic, common sense guy that actually loves real American soul music, then we're going to have a fine time tonight. Dan, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
Uncle Ted, we appreciate it. This is going to be a fun hour or so. So let's get right to it. For our viewers, listeners, and for Riley, we asked this of him when he told us he had a huge music background. That took me about 10 seconds to explain because I do not. No one wants me to play an instrument or sing. It's never going to happen. My wife Peyton will tell you, no. I want to know how Uncle Ted got his start, because when I was looking up your background to find out things I didn't know, you got started in like 63 in some band that Amboy Dukes or Amboy. Is that what the band was called back in the day? Tell us that.
Yeah,
Ted.
well, I'll tell you, I was born in 1948, right after Les Paul electrified the guitar to cleanse our souls. And Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis. And I was born in Detroit, so I had this unbelievable, powerful, soulful music authority of Motown surrounding me, along with Fred Bear's bow and arrow and my dad taking me up north every year to be a martial arts backstrapper. The bottom line is I had a band. We're celebrating 50 years of Stranglehold, but we're celebrating 68 years when I first started performing in Detroit. Riley said he started in high school. I started when I was like 7 or 8 years old playing my guitar, and I played at the Michigan State Fairgrounds when I was 10 years old. So I've been doing this a long time, and I'm still craving the next lift. I got the best musicians at my side, the best audience that love real music. They pay attention to the work ethic, virtuosity of my soulmates, my bandmates. So it's 2025. We're celebrating 50 years of Stranglehold, which, by the way, there's a 50-year Stranglehold commemorative T-shirt at tednugent.com, and people love to stand up for what they believe in, and Stranglehold is the theme song for that, which is why you use it.
Yes, I mean, it just fit, right? I remember talking to you when we were talking about launching this show with Matt, and we were trying to find a song. And first, obviously, came up with the name, the graphics, whatever. And we're like, okay, Matt and I live in San Diego. We're technically talk show hosts, but Anchormen sounds about right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, well, people associate that with the movie, which was set in the 70s, even though we're not doing that. We're not trying to go after the movie. We're just like, we're Anchormen. And if you go with that 70s theme, then obviously, I know it. You weren't born yet, but I'm like, that song just clicks. That opening riff, we got to use it. And so, Ted, God bless you. God bless you. God bless you for giving us permission to use it because we love it. I think it's an awesome way to kick the show off every week. And this show wouldn't be the show without it. And I hear some freedom-loving barking back there from Ted.
Yeah, whenever you mention Stranglehold, my dogs get excited because they know that's the theme song when I bring dead stuff back to the camp.
Well, look here, Ted, if I may. So, looking through your catalog, including your most recent album, Detroit Muscle, it's just one timeless riff after another. Wango Tango, Stormtroopin', Stranglehold, Cat Scratch Fever, Dog Eat Dog, Paralyzed. It just goes on and on. So, where does the music just come to you? I mean, how does that happen?
Riley, I'm always surrounded by piss and vinegar and attitude, spirit, and I had a bumper crop of middle fingers again this year. So there's a whole lot of freedom demanding in the Nugent tribe, and I've always got guitars and amps. I'm surrounded by guitars and amps right now. This is a custom Gibson Birdland that was given to me by my manager Doug Banker and Toby Keith for my 60th birthday.
Beautiful.
Long time ago, but it has a life of its own. It feeds back. It has a very low threshold of making really outrageous, sexy noises. And I was turned on to that in 1962, opening up for Billy Lee and the Rivieras and Martha and the Vandellas. So I was bombarded with the inspiration of Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Little Richard and Motown. Such musical authority and groove and spirit and piss and vinegar. So every day, I'm not kidding, every day I train with my guns and I hunt varmints and critters with my dogs. Every day of my life, I run a trap line. I do outdoor ranching, farming stuff. And every day when I get in with still dirt, remember the gladiator before he got into battle, he would get a little bit of dirt in his hand. That's down to earth, grounded. Well, when I plug in my Birdland, even at the old age of 76, it's like the 10-year-old Ted. It starts making noise, and my hands go to a variation of a Chuck Berry or a Motown grunting, grinding, soulful, rhythmical, sensually stimulating rhythm. And those licks, I don't write songs. I've never had a piece of paper and a pen in front of me. I just let these licks happen, and they have a cadence. They inspire a lyricism and a vision, whether it's Great White Buffalo or our favorite love song, Wang Dang Sweet Poontang. No matter what the riff is, there's an organic, instinctual pursuit of lyrics and theme that go with the grinding rhythm. So once again, I attribute it to my bandmates. When I unleash these licks to my bandmates, when they come pounding in with bass and drums, it's literally out of body. Our feet don't touch the ground. I played the national anthem at Mar-a-Lago on Tuesday, and because of the way I play it with that rhythmical grind of my right hand that you hear in the opening of Stranglehold and all my licks, you can't escape it unless you're neutered or a Democrat, which is the same thing.
We'll get into politics in a minute, Uncle Ted. Hold on.
They're absolutely spontaneous without any thought. Like the martial arts guy says, too many minds. I don't think about it. I don't plan it. I don't have a vision or a key or a rhythm or a tempo in mind. I just get in from doing outdoor spirit of the wild lifestyle, and funk happens. The grind just comes out. I'm a lucky. I've been clean and sober for 76 years, so I'm easily stimulated because everything still works pretty good.
Yeah, think about that, folks. How many rock and roll stories have we heard of rockers over the decades, unfortunately, falling prey to alcohol and pills and drugs? And Uncle Ted, his drug is the music and his patriotism. Riley, when you were in bands, and you're still in one today, right? You told me. Can you do it like Uncle Ted? Do you put pen to paper, or you're like him? It just happens. Like the magic happens.
I think that's it. And I think, Ted, like you said, it's with the bandmates, the other musicians you surround yourself. Everyone brings ideas to the table. Everyone has a lick or a riff. Maybe it starts with the words, and then that leads to music, or the other way around. But I think surrounding yourself with other people that just ooze creativity all the time. The ideas just come to them, and there's just a secret sauce to that. The inspiration strikes when it does. It could happen when you're in the shower in the morning, on your way home, driving from work. Whatever it is, it's finding people that understand that are on the same wavelength and frequency that can help sort of pull that out of you as a musician.
Right. Putting those creative people around you.
Yes.
And Uncle Ted got that decades ago. It kind of reminds me of a guy named, who am I thinking of? Oh, Donald J. Trump, who always says, if you're not the smartest person in the room, you put the smartest people in the room around you, like Trump's doing with Elon and Doge. And so since Uncle Ted brought up politics, even though we try to keep our show to pop culture and not dig too deep, I knew I couldn't invite you on and not go political. So here we go. Uncle Ted, I missed you on Tuesday. I was supposed to be there. Just scheduling and stuff couldn't happen. But I saw a cast of characters show up to Mar-a-Lago, and I think we pulled a pic off of Uncle Ted's X page if you want to throw it up. I saw a cast of characters. Actor Russell Brand. Amazing fighter Mike Tyson. General Michael Flynn, Patriot. Donald J. Trump. Oh, and then, that guy named Ted Nugent, holding baseball bats at Mar-a-Lago, having a hell of a good time this week. I'm so upset I missed that party. Ted, please fill me in on what I missed.
Well, you talk about politics and bring up politics. Everything comes from politics. Politics in America is the experiment in self-government, which means that all responsible, accountable, participating Americans should continue to experiment in self-government based on the divine intervention of the Founding Fathers' vision of we the people guiding our life instead of kings and emperors and tyrants and Führers and Marxists and slave drivers. So I figured that out. Even though I was a victim of the American anti-education system, I learned really quickly when I was contacted by heroes coming home from Vietnam. Yeah. And my dad was a sergeant in World War II in Korea. And they never talked about it. But when the guys came home from Vietnam, they would hear in my radio interviews celebrating the Second Amendment and talking about shooting, aim small, miss small, the firearms marksmanship discipline, and raving about how the mystical flight of the arrow is not just an arrow to get dinner and to be accurate and disciplined, but the flight of the arrow is your life. And God gave us everything we need to control the path of your arrow/life. Yes, so I discovered painfully that the Vietnam War was illegal and immoral and manipulated, and that we did it on the bodies of 58,000 heroes. Yes. And that Uncle Sam, I was starting to figure out, was a conniving, corrupt, manipulative enemy of the Founding Fathers' vision, whether it's the CIA or all these alphabet soup organizations.
And it hasn't gotten any better since the 70s. Let's be real.
Well, Ted. It got better on November 5th. And so the reason I started raising hell, and Dan, we've talked about this, in the music entertainment world, they would attack me for carrying a gun and eating venison, which happens to be the two most perfect things a human can do, self-defense and conservation. So as they would attack me, I'd go, well, you've got to be kidding me. So you don't think your life is worth defending? Plus you're going to want to say that I'm not allowed to, and you're going to eat chicken that eats its own feces, but you're going to criticize my squirrel souffle? I mean, I realized that the hippies and the people in the entertainment and the leftists and the Democrats were completely brain dead. So instead of getting defensive, I started having fun with it. Yeah. And so the music, you've got to have a positive attitude no matter what. But if you're going to play music like I do, the intensity, the passion, the uninhibited, the defiance, the irreverence, the sensual outrage, then you got to be free and open and uninhibited. So I started raising hell for people running for office, ultimately defined by the great Donald Trump, that represented real independent freedom. And I guess I can summarize it like this. When somebody recently again said, hey, we got constitutional carry. And I went, oh, shut up. I was born with constitutional carry. You can't introduce me to a man that can give me the right to keep and bear arms. I was born with that, and I can keep and bear arms wherever I may roam while I'm alive on planet Earth. So take your constitutional carry and shove it up your ass. I already had that, and no man can go, by the way, I give you constitutional carry. I eat. So my point is that I'm very passionate about my freedom that happens to define my hunting, ranching, private property rights, conservation, trapping, fishing, self-defense, and the fun of firearms activities. And I was attacked for all those perfect things. So I stood strong and I crushed them every time. In fact, I discovered, Dan, if you're going to arm wrestle Ted Nugent, you might want to bring an arm because they're helpless to debate me.
That's true.
Yeah.
You cannot debate this man, which is why I'm so glad I align with him. Like, I have 12 new questions now on everything he just said, but Riley, I'll let you throw one at him because he threw so much in there. My mind's racing now on what I got to ask him next.
So while Dan's news, just for a moment here. Well, here's the thing, though.
It's a lot.
Everything you're saying, that the freedom, the rebelliousness, the sort of primal instinct, taking care of your own, that's at the core of rock and roll music. So what I don't understand as a lifelong rock and roll and blues fan is to see so many modern rock groups become so pro-establishment.
Thank you.
Pro-tyranny.
We discussed this before we came on.
You said neutered earlier. I think that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
Where did they go? Because Ted and old school rockers used to be anti-establishment.
Yes.
And in the last 4 years of the Biden-Harris regime, all we saw was rockers and even country stars and actors and all these people that used to be anti-establishment suck up to the establishment.
Yes.
But then you got Uncle Ted, who's never done it. So why do you think so many of these modern day rockers now kiss ass to the establishment instead of kick it like you always have?
I'm going to drive our enemies completely batty once again because I'm going to give you the answer why they became sheep and they bought the lie of peer pressure because they got stoned. And comfortably numb is actually uncomfortably dumb. And the more dope you smoke and the more you play in intoxicating games, the more your brain deteriorates. And they went from being Little Richard defiant to being Bruce Springsteen compliant.
Ugh.
And it's just embarrassing. So
It is.
And that's not just a hunch. I was there. Keith Moon made fun of me because I wouldn't smoke his dope. Jimi Hendrix made fun of me because I wouldn't take his acid.
Really?
Bon Scott made fun of me because I wouldn't drink his Jack Daniels. John Belushi tried to make fun of me because I wouldn't snort his cocaine. And meanwhile, they got high. They're dead. I went hunting. I'm still Ted. Any questions, call 1-800-NUMBNUT. That sounds too simple, but the more you get high, the dumber you get. And here, for the people that are high out there, let me put it in your language. Bah, bah, bah.
Ted, well, this is in the headlines in the last week, and you and I brought this up before we came onto the studio today, and that's a show I used to love growing up, Saturday Night Live, because it used to be funny, and it used to stick it to the man. And they had their 50th anniversary show last Sunday. They put up some skits that weren't so funny, like the one with Tom Hanks making fun of MAGA. And then I remembered, didn't Uncle Ted get into a little scuffle with SNL a dozen years ago or so when they were messing with my friend Ted? Would you like to expand on SNL and the shit back and forth that was going on between you guys?
Well, once again, God bless. No, I knock people that get high, and you have the right to do that. I spent the weekend with Keith Richards, my musical hero. He literally still had a hand on the Chuck Berry baton. He didn't just hand it off. Chuck Berry had a hand on one end of the baton, and Keith Richards had his hand on the other. So they became my musical heroes. And I don't think there's been a day Keith Richards has ever been straight. But I respect the man, his work ethic, and if you want to get high, but you will be a liability to your family. If you're high, you're not an asset. If there's a fire in the house, instead of you helping someone out, someone's going to have to help you out. This is not conjecture. These are not opinions. I've watched it my whole life. And so when they were inviting me on these different programs, and the reason they debate whether I should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I won't make the case for me, but that Triumph and Styx and REO Speedwagon are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Grandmaster Flash is. This is too funny for words. It's so offensive. It's so dishonest. They got ABBA and I don't even know Madonna. You got ABBA and Madonna in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but not REO Speedway. So I rest my case. The point being is that whenever my name came up, the majority of the people in the entertainment industry go, I hate that guy. He like murders innocent animals, and he thinks everybody should have a machine gun and shoot people. That's dope talking. That's literally.
So you're saying they're getting high on their own supply on SNL? Way too much. That's why they're not funny anymore.
But you have to admit,
because they used to be funny.
They were John Belushi.
70s,
What a
80s,
gift! But once again,
90s, they were funny.
It's not funny when you're dead. I know these guys spent time. They would have still been funnier. I believe funnier if they'd taken good care of themselves and remained respectful to their gifts from God, staying clean and sober so that all the brain things worked in unison and effectively. We needed a brain doge back then to make these stoners to be more efficient. And so it broke my heart, and I've helped a lot. When Eddie Van Halen got out of rehab, he called me right away and said that I influenced him to get off the poison and off the mind-destroying chemical warfare he was inflicting upon himself. So I have a great relationship with people from every imaginable point of view and lifestyle, but I'm having the time of my life, and I think we can just all take a deep breath and go, Ted Nugent has not stumbled on a syllable yet. Meanwhile, interview Ozzy or interview Joe Biden or interview some of these guys who can't form a sentence. And I'm alive, and I thank God every day. So I put my heart and soul into being his best husband, the best father, the best grandfather, the best interview, the best patriot, the best guitar player, the best trapper, the best hunter, the best gut pile guy. I try to be the best that I can be. And you can't be the best unless you're clean and sober, period.
How about that from Uncle Ted?
Well, it's just interesting you say that because, like you said, there's such a long documented history of this, especially in rock and roll music. Look at the 27 Club. Look at Jim Morrison. Look at Jimi Hendrix. It happens over and over and over again, but so few rockers learn the lesson. And that applies to so many other entertainers, too. Chris Farley being one, a great SNL guy. So you would think that people would learn eventually after watching enough of these guys tragically OD that, hey, maybe that's bad news and we should just stay away from it.
But there's enablers all around them. That's the thing. You get into the music industry, and Ted knows this. You get into even the sports world. You definitely get into the acting world. And the people around you, your agents, your talent scouts, your publicist, your personal assistant, your damn personal chef, all of them, nobody tells these people no. Hey, maybe that 5th line or 25th line of cocaine tonight is a bad idea. Maybe that 38th beer before you drive your Lamborghini or Porsche is a bad idea. But nobody's going to tell a celebrity that, right, Ted? Can't tell them that. They're celebrities.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When I got an award after selling out a couple nights at Madison Square Garden with AC/DC opening up for me, we had a big banquet with Bill Graham, the world's greatest rock and roll promoter, and we went to Club Studio 54. I went with Keith Richards. I had a Walther PPK on me, and he just stuck to me like glue. I wanted to be around a guy with a gun. What a great story that is. But anyhow, I wanted to talk to him about his Chuck Berry love affair. I wanted to talk to him why the Stones had Motown, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, and Chuck Berry songs, which I was in that same whirlwind. I wanted to have a conversation with him, but he couldn't have a conversation. I wanted to talk to Bon Scott. I wanted to have a conversation because I'm a funny guy, and I'd like to talk to John Belushi about having fun and being fun, but you can't talk to these guys. Now, I talked to Sam Kinison, who was a hopeless chemical warfare guy, and I influenced Sam to get clean and sober, and then tragically he got hit by a drunk driver.
I know, it wasn't even
on
his
his way
fault.
to a gig, I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
outside of Palm Springs where I used to live. I remember that story. You talked about awards, and I know, Riley, you and I were discussing the Grammys, and we were discussing Beyonce and other people in different genres, and we wanted to get Uncle Ted's take kind of on how the music industry, how the Grammys are handed out, how these people are flipping genres and making money or not making money, and how all that has changed, the evolution, right, of music, the award scene and all that. It's a lot different than when, Uncle Ted, you were rocking it 70s, 80s, and even 90s. It's changed quite a bit in the last 20 years. I want to get your take on that.
Well, and again, the music, as Riley has expressed, and you celebrate, Dan, and everybody does. Music is the sonic guiding soundtrack to the mile markers of our lives. This special moment, there was a song attributed to that moment.
True. You can
There
always
was
think of
a
that.
musical relationship with that girl, with when you meet your wife, when your
says that all the
dog
time, Ted.
dies.
Yep.
When you welcome a baby, when you say goodbye to a loved one. I mean, there's music that coincides with the most human emotions and time in our life. The best of the best and the most painful of the painful.
True.
Yes.
So I was discussing it with my buddy Calvin Ross, Lone Star Music. We're doing these Ted Nugent shit kicker speakeasies in Texas and Michigan this year. I'm not going on tour because the dogs won't let me spend the night anywhere except with them. And so we do these Michigan gigs where I can get back to my cabin at night, and do the Texas ones where I can get back to my ranch. And we were talking, so what's your favorite killer guitar-driven band today? There ain't any. There isn't any.
I guess if you think
There ain't
about it.
none.
Right?
Love the Foo Fighters, but they've been around for 30 years and they don't have any guitar solos.
Yep.
I mean, there's supposed to be a crescendo. I mean, whether it's Junior Walker on the sax or Eddie Van Halen on guitar or Billy Gibbons or the great Tommy Shaw, there's a crescendo when the guitar solo happens. Gone.
That's
It's
true.
these poor
I'm really racking
poor
my
people.
brain right now, trying to think of new bands in the last 5 years, let's just say,
Yeah.
that rock out like Ted and the old rockers that I grew up with, right? Listening to, being 50 years old. I can't think of any, like
What?
new bands.
No, well, I think that is a lot to do with the political
point.
landscape now. I think people are just so depressed and they're so just, I don't know what it is, but that sense of rebellion and that primal freedom chasing after that. Again, that's what every rock and roll group had in common. They were completely uninhibited. And you just don't find that kind of spirit and restlessness.
Well, now they're
in rock
created by
groups.
the record labels, and then they're auto-tuned, and then they're stuck out on these shows, and some of them are lip-syncing any damn way, and they don't have that
Yeah.
much damn talent.
Yes, or they
So-
have songwriters for them that just write all their stuff. It's like you used to have bands where you had people that came, everyone in Led Zeppelin came to every studio session with a clear set of ideas musically. Jimmy Page does the music for Stairway to Heaven. Robert Plant writes the lyrics in one single sitting with them. John Bonham has the groove. Everyone is contributing to that. Now you have these pop star sensations that have a whole team of writers and songwriters and producers.
Yes.
It's all digital. They don't have to actually create in order to become a
great point.
creative
Yeah.
icon. It's a problem.
I want to know who Ted's inspirations, you mentioned a few of the older ones are no longer with us, but who today that's still out there playing, rocking, whether it's country, rock, whatever genre, but who do you think today is still doing a great job? Like one of my favorites is a rocker turned country star because I think he's amazing at writing and singing, and that's my buddy Aaron Lewis. I love Aaron. So I want to hear Uncle
Aaron's
Ted's.
a monster.
Right? Thank you. I think
Yeah.
he's one of the beasts today. Who else?
He's a
is
dear
out there?
friend of mine. He's a
I
dear
know.
friend.
He said we should all go hunting, Ted. You, me, and Aaron. Let's go. But who's two or
telling you.
three of the guys that you like?
Well, first of all, we should celebrate in 2025 as we get teary-eyed that there's no new bands coming on that really kick our ass. The Styx and REO, well, it's Kevin Cronin now, but REO Speedwagon Music, Sammy Hagar's out there, Billy Gibbons and ZZ Top is still out there.
Yep,
there's still great classic rockers that are still absolutely on fire, even for being old men. I know that Tommy Shaw and his band Styx are still playing as if it was 1975. They still got the fire and the passion, the piss and vinegar, and the reverence for their Chuck Berry, Little Richard, soulful black musical authority influences. So I cannot list all the black heroes that all the bands I just mentioned. I talked to Sammy Hagar. We know that we would not be musicians if it wasn't for James Brown. Just something happens when the hardest working man in music who delivered such inescapable groove and grind and tightness and musical adventure and movements, just an etude of music outrage. And that goes back to the Kinks and the Who and certainly Stones and the Beatles and the Dave Clark Five and Zeppelin eventually, of course. But that influence is still alive and well. My band, the Ted Nugent Band with Jason Hartless and Johnny Big, and here in Texas with John Kutz, we get up there and I'm telling you, it's like a bunch of horny teenagers that can't wait to grab that cheerleader's ass. We just can't wait to play Stranglehold. We can't wait to play Cat Scratch Fever. It's such a grind. And then the girls all of a sudden elevate and you go, I'm even further inspired now. So that, you talk about primal scream, primal authority, the primal groove. That is still the grinding motivation for all of your favorite music. We're still out there playing, even though I'm 76. I should be limping, especially with these fake knees I got. The point is that the stuff that turns you on is still available, and people should get out there and see them every chance they get.
Awesome. You know what turns me on besides that? When Uncle Ted talks about hunting. I grew up in Northwest Ohio, only about an hour and 40 minutes from D-Town, Uncle Ted, so I know Detroit very well. I'm a Red Wings fan, just like you, even though I'm a Buckeye. I grew up at 5 years old with my old man putting a double-barrel 12-gauge shotgun in my hand. My first gun was a breakdown single-shot 410, and we've been out hunting squirrels and coons and deer and you name it since I was a little kid. And something that Ted and I have talked about on the talk show that I wanted to expand here on the podcast is his love for conservation, because too many people out there on the left, and even some, I would say, in the right, don't understand the importance of hunters.
Yes.
Because if we're not out there thinning the herd, and I'll let Uncle Ted take it from here, you would have people die, not people, pardon me, animals, critters dying of disease, starvation. It would be horrible. They would be in way worse shape than they are if we weren't out there thinning the herd. Plus, as Ted said, some of that stuff tastes damn good, Uncle Ted.
Well, one of the reasons Shemaine and I are so healthy, and we started Make America Healthy Again a long time ago. We've been married for 36 years, and we started raving about the obscene, demonic chemical warfare is perpetrated upon American citizens by the FDA and the USDA and the WHO and the CDC and the Uncle Sam gangsters, Monsanto and Big Pharma. It's just an absolute horror story what Americans are being put through because of Uncle Sam's chemical warfare upon us. However, I have been raised on venison and squirrel and ducks and geese and quail and woodcock and grouse and doves and woodchucks. I eat woodchucks like a little cow. I think the cuter the critter, the sweeter the meat. The point is that
woodchucks.
Yeah, no, you got to do it. Hunt. What do they eat?
No
they eat clover and grass.
Really?
Same as a good cow.
Groundhog. I've had all the others you mentioned.
Yes.
You know, growing up in a small farming town, you get the squirrel gravy on top of the rabbit legs with the mashed potatoes, and it's good. But really, but groundhog? I haven't done that one, Ted.
Like a big squirrel. They're delicious. Anyhow, but you got to handle it right, just like you have to handle all game properly. But yeah, the bottom line is the irrefutable science truth is
thank you
that hunters have brought back more deer, more cougar, more bear, more geese, more turkey than ever in recorded history, because not only have we safeguarded the habitat critical to the survival and expansion of those species, but by harvesting the surplus every year, we generate trillions of dollars to manage wildlife based on the true science of sustained yield, habitat carrying capacity, winter severity index, and to mitigate the slaughter on the highways, which is still out of control because we err on the side of caution. But it's not rocket science, it's science. And if you're against hunting and you influence game departments, those animals will not be saved. Your tax dollars will hire some USDA guy to go in and clean up the mess that we weren't allowed to manage. And they will kill the animals after they get sick, after they get diseased, after they kill people. Not just killing animals on the highway. We kill hundreds of people a year with wildlife vehicle collisions.
Right.
So I'm on a warpath to get game departments to be honest about science-based game management. Here in Texas, the Texas Parks and Wildlife, there's some bad, dishonest people. They're anti-hunters. Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Wisconsin Resources, the Pennsylvania Game Commission, Connecticut. These are animal rights hunter haters, nature haters. And we have to kill enough game to make room for next year's production. They're not going to survive during the winter. That's why it's called the death of winter. So we manage and harvest the surplus. The Hunters for the Hungry program distributes 250 million quality, nutritious, natural, organic meals of venison every year across this country. 250 million.
Yeah, I know you do that personally, right?
Hunters.
When you have your hunts, if you guys can't eat everything, because I know you people hire Uncle Ted. They go out on hunts either at the ranch up in Detroit, outside of Detroit rather, or down in Texas. And if you guys don't eat all your meat, I've seen you post before. You were always donating to the hungry. I think that's amazing. And so hunters get this horrible rap that we're just killers of little Bambi. That's bullshit. It drives me crazy. You were talking about the science of it, and you know how these podcasts go, Uncle Ted. We got to pay the bills, so bear with me for a minute, because speaking of science, we got to pay the bills real quick and thank our friends. Healthcare should be simple, right? Not a constant battle with red tape, restrictions, and shortages. So you shouldn't have to jump through hoops to get the medications you need. That's why you need to check out All Family Pharmacy. They believe in your right to choose and to make it easy to get essential medications, like the ones we weren't allowed to get during the COVID pandemic: ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, metobezoline, antibiotics, and more. So it's easy. You want to get them? Just get a hold of allfamilypharmacy.com. You select what you need, they take care of the rest. A licensed doctor provides you the prescription and your meds, and they're shipped straight to your door. So you're not in a CVS going, yeah, I want ivermectin, and they're, is this for COVID? I can't give it to you. But if you went to Ghana and you had a stomach flu, I'll give it to you. No, it's real simple. It just gets sent right to you, no middleman. So let's be real. Being prepared is not negotiable. Whether it's another virus that could happen, supply chain issues like we've seen, government restrictions, having those essential medications on hand gives you and your family peace of mind. So stock up now and be ready for the next plandemic. You can go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt. Use code MATT10. You'll get 10% off your complete order. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt. Because your health needs are supposed to be in your hands, not the government's. And big thank you to All Family for sponsoring the Anchormen podcast. Now back to Uncle Ted, and we'll talk some more hunting, because that's one of the main reasons, besides the music, was the hunting that I wanted to get him on. And you know that we were talking about it ahead of time. You're not a big hunter. You're the music guy. I don't think Matt is. I've been hunting since I was a kid. Here he goes. Yep. He's going to get the bow and arrow out. Boom. And so
I do appreciate this, though, about it, because you're living off of the land and you're eating food that was made by God, not by man. All of the junk and highly processed food going around, it's making people sick. So even seeing that with the bow, it just connects you to nature. You're actually providing food for people that is nutritious, that has real value for them, as opposed to the kind of junk food that so many people live on. And it makes them sick, and ultimately it kills them. It takes their life prematurely.
Well,
it's
Bobby Kennedy's going to clean that up. And I bet Ted's a fan of Bobby's now that he's in with Trump and going to clean up HHS to look at what's in the food, in the water, and in the damn vaccines. Right, Ted?
Yeah, Robert Kennedy Jr. is a visionary when it comes to being healthy, because once again, the FDA and the USDA, people remember this, they're waging chemical warfare on Americans. The poison, the trash, the garbage, the chemicals in all the food out there, almost all the food produced in America is against the law in all other countries. And we're supposed to be the best country, and our government, the FDA, does not protect the quality and healthiness of our food and drugs. They make sure, because it's the same Monsanto chemical warfare monsters that now run these governmental agencies. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is, I got to tell you, yes, the venison is the ultimate rocket fuel for the soul. It really makes you healthy.
And elk.
It's the best there is, and it's so simple to prepare properly. Everybody I turn on to wild boar or venison or pheasant or ducks or geese, they taste it and they go, "This is incredible!"
He's talking my
because
language
they
now.
actually have taste. But more important, Riley, is the higher level of awareness, especially with the bow and arrow, because it is a martial arts. The higher level of awareness, absolutely essential to bring venison home, is so good for you because you pay attention to the accountability of each step you take on the hunt. Because if you take it conscientiously and accountably, God will reward you with getting close to game. And if you have put your heart and soul into being an efficient archer or marksman, then that gift of sustenance will be the reward for that dedication. Hunting is very difficult. With a bow and arrow, it's almost impossible. You got to be so stealthy. Yes. You got to be so tuned in. You got to really be able to make the shot in the presence of the beast that was designed not to let you do that. And I've been doing this since I could walk, following my dad and Fred Bear. And the people that we've turned down with our Ted Nugent Camp for Kids, it's a nonprofit 501c volunteer charity for 36 years. We have kids we taught about archery and marksmanship and safe gun handling and being clean and sober and turning precious wildlife into family-sized portions. Those kids from 20, 30 years ago are now bringing their kids to the Ted Nugent Camp for Kids. And we're literally saving these young Americans' lives from the alternative outrage that's out there. So people should go to tednugent.com and see what we're doing with the Ted Nugent Camp for Kids. It's literally teaching people that hunting, fishing, and trapping is the most beneficial activity for environmental upgrade available to mankind. If you want clean air, soil, and water, learn to hunt, fish, and trap, because your money's going to go to safeguard that habitat, which produces clean air, soil, and water.
Right.
Like, duh.
Amen. So let's talk about some of the animals and the hunts that you do at the different properties. If people want to sign up and go on one of them, I know obviously deer, wild boar, pheasant, depending on season and depending on if you're up in Detroit or you're down in Texas. But just fill them in on those hunts and what you do. And what's the difference too, Ted? Some people go on these hunts that are for yuppies, where everything's all, well, they are, Riley. Yeah. They're yuppies. They've never barely shot a gun in their damn lives. All their hunting gear looks all clean. It's a brand new Carhartt woke company. Anyway, and they go out there and it's all in just a couple acres and they're fenced in and they're farm-raised animals and they're feeding them, versus if you're getting wild. Kind of like with fishing. People, if you go buy something, it says farm-raised or caught in the wild. I want Uncle Ted's opinion on that farm-raised stuff, that wild caught, those ranches in Texas and elsewhere where they got everything combined and you're guaranteed to get something, versus how Uncle Ted hunts and how we should be hunting.
Well, it's fascinating how it all developed, because whenever I would do an interview about a tour or a new record or just raising hell about my love of rock and roll, I didn't intentionally start talking about hunting, but they'd ask me where I get my inspiration, and I would tell them about the spirit of the wild, and that when I cleanse my soul from this outrageous sonic bombast of my musical unleashing, that the peace and the quiet of the outdoor, especially with a bow and arrow, because you're not going to shoot much, but you're going to learn much. And so people started asking me, well, how can I get into it? That sounds exciting. Ted Nugent really gets excited about this bow and arrows and killing deer. I'd like to try that. So I started Sunrise Safaris, almost over 55 years ago. Whoa. And we started guiding and outfitting. Now we do hunt in Michigan. We have wild boar, and we have white-tailed deer, and we have a lot of small game hunting. And again, you go to tednugent.com, you can find out how to book it. But we sell them out every year, every weekend. I personally guide and campfire, and we track and gut and butcher. It's really the most organic, primal scream available to mankind. I don't think Bon Jovi does this, but the point is that we hunt even on a high fence operation. If you wanted an easy deer to kill, you would hunt a farm in Illinois next to a forest preserve where you're not allowed to hunt, and the deer are used to picnickers and campers and hikers, and they're not afraid of man. All the wildlife on my property are scared to death. They're so elusive. They're afraid of their own shadow. So it's a true challenge. Yes. Some animals are a little bit more attuned than others. But yeah, we hunt all August, September, October into November in Michigan every week, and I guide hunters. We sell out every year. It's just the greatest campfire, the greatest people, fun people, smart, successful, cocky people that want to learn about this incredible excitement of an outdoor hunting, fishing, trapping lifestyle. And then we do a birthday hunt and a New Year's hunt here at our Spirit Wild Ranch in Texas. And it's really fascinating. In Texas, you have all kinds of Asian and African animals that are free ranging, from scimitar horned oryx to axis deer and fallow deer and cyca deer and Aladad sheep from Africa. Ranchers brought them in back in the 1930s, and you never know what you're going to bump into. Guys will go opening day of deer season and shoot a zebra because there's a zebra loose on their. It's really, and by the way, zebra is delicious. And don't get excited about shooting a zebra. It's a striped deer, and so we kill the surplus every year. We have a limit. We have a bag limit based on the herd size and the habitat necessary to support that herd. And we just have a great time. And I've turned lots and lots of people, in combination with our Spirit of the Wild TV show on the Pursuit Network, the most watched hunting show in the history of hunting shows. We're on 8 times a week. Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild on the Pursuit Network. And what Shemaine does with her Real America's Voice, Faith and Freedom, she has become the most deadly bow hunter. If Shemaine grabs her Matthews bow, I sharpen my knife because something's going to die. It's very exciting. She's
so the wife's more
stealthy.
Deadly accurate than you with the bow and arrow?
I'm telling you, she can outshoot me. And something
Whoa.
about, I give off kind of a death ray. The deer scatter when I even think about going hunting. But something about Shemaine, she doesn't scare them away. I will hunt 10, 15, 20 days before I get a shot. Shemaine gets a shot in the first hour of the first hunt. There's something electric going on here. She's convinced. I walked by a trailer hitch last week and got it pregnant. So there's something about my aura that causes the animals to run in fear. But there's something about Shemaine's aura. She literally is a buck attractor. Obviously, she got the ultimate buck. So there's a different level of challenge for everybody. But with the bow and arrow, it's so difficult because you have to move. You don't have to just take the safety off and squeeze the trigger, which doesn't take much movement. But with the bow and arrow, you've got to move in the presence of the beast. So you got to time it, know when to move, and your conscience and your ethical barometer drives us to be efficient to kill that game cleanly. And the average deer, I shoot over 100 deer a year with my bow, donate tons of venison to soup kitchens and homeless shelters. They think I'm Mother Teresa with a sharp stick. That I kill so many deer that I make sure I only shoot when I know I'm going to kill them right now. And there's not a quicker, more painless death in nature than a razor-sharp broadhead. They die. They don't even know they're hit. Most of the time when you dedicate yourself to proficiency, they literally will jump because it's like a razor cut. It goes through them, and they look around like, what was that? And then they tip over. It's really magic. It's mystical.
Yep, I have no problem with it. I think that's Mother Nature and the way God intended, and there is nothing wrong at all with that.
No, it's perfect.
Well, and the thing that you're not wasting any of it either. I mean, everything gets used. Absolutely, whether it's the skin and the fur or anything else, the meat, donating it yourself, everything is getting used. So it's completely, there's no waste in that. It's the circle of life. That's a beautiful thing. That animal gives its life for you so that we can have, and that's for sustenance. It's not just junk food. There's real value to that. So there's a symbiotic relationship there, I think.
Yeah, and two,
spirit.
I love hearing about what Uncle Ted, you do after the hunt with the folks that purchase a ticket to go on one of these hunts. You have these fireside cookouts and chats, right? And you hang with the people, you and the wife make the game that day in different dishes, and you get to sit around the fireside with Uncle Ted and shoot the shit. Now, who doesn't want to do that?
I'm telling you, my campfires are the best campfires. And again, I attribute it to the quality of people that come, people from every imaginable walk of life from all around the world. They want to see what makes this goofy guitar player tick. And it is the spirit of the wild. When you kill your own game, it is the physics of spirituality, because that is a living creature that you're taking the life. You're not actually taking the life. Based on the Native American lore, God, when you dedicate yourself to proficiency, God is actually providing the gift for your dedication. And that's the way we look at it. But the campfires, I whip out the guitar and I'll play Fred Bear, and I just want to go hunting, and my bow and arrow and occasional stranglehold and cat scratch fever. And we actually change it to can't trap beaver. But what we do is I'm a fun guy. If you don't have fun with me, you might be a Michael Moore fan. The point is that we just have a ride around the campfire. So go to tednugent.com. We're booking next fall's hunts now. And my son Toby, my son Rocco, Shemaine is there. Jim Knapp up in Michigan. Bob Bohannon here on Spirit Wild Ranch. We just the best fun people, kind, loving, giving, cocky, funny people. We have the best campfires in the world.
I'll tell you, we have got to get out, whether it's Michigan, because that's close to my hometown in Ohio, or down to Texas. I know that Aaron Lewis said, let's go. I was talking to him a week or two ago at one of his gigs here in Southern California. I don't know that Mr. Gates has been on a lot of hunts, but maybe we could drag Matt along. Riley, you been on many hunts in your life?
No, sir.
None at all?
No, but would love to.
Wow.
Love to change that.
We might have to break, I can't say pop two, never mind. We might have to break in two non-hunters, Uncle Ted, Matt and Riley.
I'll tell you, in fact, I think every one of our campfires, remember, it's every weekend, August, September, October, November, and then here in Texas in December. Every hunt has a number of brand new people who want to find out what this thrill is that I'm always celebrating and promoting. And so we guide them on what kind of equipment to get, how to prepare themselves, how to practice and become proficient. You need to be accurate and knowledgeable with that firearm. There's only one gun law needed on planet Earth, and that is to never point it towards anything you're not willing to destroy.
Boom.
And,
exactly.
And all other regulations are infringements. All other gun laws are illegal.
Amen.
And I defy all of them. The point is that a lot of brand new guys come and we take our time. We'll go to the range with them, even though they have to put in range time before they arrive. They have to be familiar with their bow, familiar with their weapon. They need to know it intimately. You have to know it intimately, like a guitar. A gun and a bow should be an extension of you, just muscle memory, natural connection. The point is that these people come and they get teary-eyed, whether they kill an animal or not. The camaraderie, the caliber of people that you find in a hunting camp, they're just the best of the best. And these guys, when they're done with their 2 or 3 day hunt with me, they go, I had no idea that such incredible experience was available. And it's only available at a hunting camp because there is a physics of spirituality to participate as a reasoning predator in God's miraculous creation, balancing the herd, and it goes right to your spirit. It's magic stuff.
It is. I agree. And you know what? You'll find out, Riley, when you go with other men and women that have the same love, you will, because I've gone by myself, and I'm sure Ted probably has too.
Really?
It's a different feel. When you're out there in Northwest Ohio in the flat fields, standing up next to a tree at 5:30 in the morning, freezing your ass off for hours, all alone, waiting for that hopeful big buck to come walking through your little woods, it's amazing. It is. It's thrilling. But there is something about camaraderie having the guys out there. Like I was just in Iowa a few weeks back. Ted and I got taken. I was giving a speech, and the folks that flew me in said, hey, one thing we do in Iowa all the time is pheasant hunting, and because you're coming in, we want to take you on a hunt with some of the local leaders and business leaders and whatnot. And we got about 9 folks out there, and let me tell you, it was 2 or 3 gals, young and old, 4 or 5 guys, young and old, and when those birds flutter and those dogs are popping them up, let me tell you what, by the way, I shot more than anybody else. I'm pretty deadly with that gun. It's just that camaraderie. And then with the critters, as I like to call them, when you see them drop and you know you nailed that shot and the dog did his job and you did your job and the dog brings it back and you see that beautiful bird and then you go home and cook that tasty pheasant and it's better than chicken. It's something you just can't explain unless you've done it, Uncle Ted.
Well, I think in other areas of life too, just having that sense of accomplishment, like you worked for your own.
Yes.
The food that you're eating comes from you. It's so simple. It's something we take for granted now. You just go to the store and it's all there for you. But there's at some point in the way, somebody actually has to produce something. It has to come from somewhere. So being that self-producing entity, thinking I actually went, I hunted this, I was patient, I had to work for it, I had to earn it. I think it just makes it that much more rewarding.
Oh, it does.
Like, there's a real sense of just innate accomplishment, and you're living as God intended. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, we only got a couple minutes left with Uncle Ted and the whole show, and there was 3 things that I told Riley I wanted to touch on with Ted Nugent, and that was music, hunting, and patriotism. And so we got 2-3 minutes left. I think the producers are telling me Ted has and is so passionate about our flag, about this nation, and about his patriotism too. I just want the last 2 minutes of the show for Uncle Ted to be able to go off and tell, especially these lefty a-holes who are anti-American these days, why we all need to get in line, love this country, love this flag, and stand by her. And I thought the best way to end is just give the mic to Uncle Ted and let him go about the flag and patriotism with about 2 minutes left on this podcast. Ted?
Well, Dan, thank you very much. And Riley, it's great sharing a campfire with you and the Anchorman here. I'm proud to share truth, logic, and common sense with you. But I was baptized into the reality of good over evil when those heroes of the military welcomed me into their lives coming back from Vietnam. And then a very emotional high of my life was when a survivor of the Bataan Death March said he wanted to meet me before he died.
Wow.
And then a survivor of Pearl Harbor, a 104-year-old guy in Michigan, wanted to meet me before he died. Because they both were unaware of each other. but they both said the same thing. Marcus Luttrell said it to me. Mark Geist from Benghazi said it to me.
Great guy.
John Wayne Walding from Fallujah said it to me. Greg Stubbe said it to me. These heroes say the same thing to me. Thank you for fighting for the freedoms my buddies died for. Because I got a big mouth, because the founding fathers wanted everybody to be like Ted Nugent, to be suspicious of all authority and to demand a constitutional accountability from our elected employees. So I raised hell because I've saluted too many flag draped coffins. As a sheriff deputy for 40 years now, I take a sacred oath to the U.S. Constitution, and those words have iron. They are the soul of existence, of freedom, of independence. So God bless America, and I'm done apologizing to the heroes of the military and law enforcement for Joe Biden, because now we have a real commander-in-chief, and we're on a true north compass setting now. And Dan, you've played a big role in that with your truth, logic, and common sense crowbar. So God bless you for that. Riley, thank you. And yes, pursue that Rush Limbaugh dream, because he was a great friend and a great American. So truth, logic, common sense, God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, Declaration of Independence, law and order. We're radicals.
Amen.
Damn right we are. Uncle Ted Nugent, everybody. Ted, I will get with your people. Let's get this hunt happening later this year. We'll bring our cameras out, and then we'll have you back on the podcast, all 3 talk shows, and we'll see who's got the best damn aim. Probably none of us as good as Uncle Ted, but I'm going to try and give you a run for your money.
Come on, Dan. Thank you very much. God bless the Anchorman.
Hey, God bless you. Thank you. Ted Nugent, everybody. Wow. So, Riley, was it all you thought it'd be?
Oh, and more.
I told you.
Really.
You get Uncle Ted on a show and tell him he's got an open microphone, and let me tell you what, you are going to have a hell of a good time. And I told you, you only had to discuss like 3 things. Like, that's it, right? Start with music.
That's right.
Go into hunting, and then go to patriotism. And Uncle Ted will have fun, fill the time, but be informative.
Yes.
He's passionate about all 3 things.
Yes.
And so many things. It was so great. So I want to thank Ted Nugent, his entire team. I want to thank Riley for filling in Matt's chair. Matt will be back next week. Don't forget, you can check out The Real Story with Riley Lewis every night. That's 6 Eastern. Then you watch Real America on OAN with Dan Ball at 8 p.m. And then you watch Matt Gaetz at 9 p.m. And of course, these shows drop every Friday all over social media for free at 7 p.m. Check out the next Anchorman next Friday. Until then, for Matt Gaetz and tonight Riley Lewis, and a big thanks to Ted Nugent, I'm Dan Ball. Thanks for tuning into the Anchorman. Rock on, baby!
Want to see more great videos like this? Click on the link below to subscribe to OAN Live and watch Dan Ball's Real America and The Matt Gaetz Show on Dish Channel 212. Tune in, subscribe, and watch today.